Hi, Lola.
Well, hi there.
All right.
Okay,
Good
so
morning. Oh, hi. Hi, Lola.
Hello, how are you?
So I'll start. It says Lola Jaye is a critically acclaimed author and philanthropist who has penned 7 novels and a self-help book. She was born and raised in London, England, and has lived in Nigeria and the United States. She has written for CNN, HuffPost, and the BBC. Lola has a keen interest in Black history and bringing untold stories to life. The Arctic Child, released in 2022, was her first epic historical novel and has since been nominated for the Halak Prize and shortlisted for the Diverse Book Awards. The Manual for Good Wives is her latest novel.
thank you very much. So thank you very much, Lola. We loved Attic Child. We loved Attic Child. So I remember
Thank
when I
you.
when I got that message from you and I said Manual for Good Wives. What is Lola talking about now? Abi, in my mind, I said Abi, she don't marry and she now wants to start giving us advice. Like the typical Nigerian babes thing. Now they get married and 30 minutes later they're advising you. Oh,
No, not at all.
So I wasn't sure what to expect, but my question is, what was the inspiration for this? Because initially, I started out slowly, and like what we are discussing before you joined us, I said this could have been two independent book stories,
Mm.
two books. So why? What was the inspiration for those? Because you could have just written Temi's story, and all of us would
hmm
have just been like, "Oh!" Like in the end, when she was seeing everybody, I mean, I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But why did you have to
Yeah,
bring these two stories together instead of just writing two different books?
yeah. It was important for me to do a dual timeline
Hmm.
because if one is Victorian and one is modern day, it allows the reader to see how hard women had it, but how
Hmm.
far we still need to go. So I think by comparing the two, even though Landry had all the benefits and privileges that Temi didn't have, she
Okay.
was still under the control of a controlling man. She was still trying to find her voice.
Hmm.
So I kind of wanted to show the parallels. That makes sense.
Okay. And I don't know. So Temi as a character, for me, I had
Mhm.
mixed feelings about her.
Okay.
Sometimes I liked her, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I found her selfish. Yeah,
Okay.
yes, especially when
Good.
she married that guy. Was it?
Edward,
Yes, I found her
the
a bit
white guy.
selfish.
Yeah.
Yes, you want something, it's trade by barter. Now give me some, and I give you some. You can't just sit
Okay.
there, hey, you just want to gain everything. And yeah, so sometimes I found her selfish, but the love between
Okay.
she and Olu,
Yeah.
yeah, it was something for me that was because when we sit down because of time, feminism, life, patriarchy,
Yeah.
the general assumption is that women at that time didn't enjoy love and didn't enjoy romance. But reading Temi's story, I was very, very surprised that Olu was very considerate. He was very loving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why did you feel the need to write that kind of story, to go in that direction? Because the kind of what we expected was the reality for us, and in terms of thinking and flashback, is her marriage to the king, to the chief. That was what we expected marriages at
Yes.
that time to be like. But her marriage with to Olu was very, very different. It was respectful and very,
Yes.
yeah. Talk to us
Yeah, because
about
black
that.
women are allowed to have respectful
Hmm.
and they're allowed to be loved by a loving black man. And
Hmm.
I was very, very conscious of doing that because I've shown a horrific marriage where this man owned her. She was a child. He
Hmm.
did things, he did things to her. But I wanted to make sure that this character experienced love and didn't have, continuously have things done to her, that she was a willing participant and that she was cherished and loved. That was really important to me. And it does exist. I don't care what media says, I don't care what anyone says.
Hmm.
True love can exist between a black man and a black woman, and an African black man and a black woman. I think we focus on the negative parts, which there are. We've all
Yeah.
got people in our families that have suffered this way,
Hmm.
but I'd like to think that they do exist. And they were based on my grandparents who were a long, long gone before I came to this earth, but they had a love story. So that first quarter was real. My grandmother was given to a chief. She was a princess. She was
Okay.
very young. He was very old. And then she ended up running away with my grandfather. So, you know, it happened. I mean, obviously, I wasn't there in a relationship,
Yeah.
but, as Africans, we rely on oral histories. And the oral history tells me that she had a true love, but the disgrace that it heaped upon the family still lives on today because of what she did.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what first drew you to the idea of exploring what it means to be a good wife? And because that's
Yeah.
what the book is, the manual for good wives. And what do you want
Mhm.
readers to take, to question about that phrase? Because when you look
Yeah,
at
because
it, what it means to be a good wife, it means different things to many people. To
it
me,
does, and
yeah.
obviously the subject matters. It looks like they're tongue in cheek, how to be a good wife. But
Yeah.
I did my research and I got them from real lists, from real advice columns in those days. But the irony is they were actually written by men. So
Oh, wow.
old men were writing these manuals for women. So obviously it comes from their mind, what
Hmm.
they want the woman to be. And obviously you're living in a Victorian society where women, unless you have a husband, you're not going to eat. Unless you come from a wealthy family or can become a governess, that's
Hmm.
how you eat. You have to have a husband. There's no choice. So, you had these men writing these manuals. And if you think about it, again, this is how we now jump to 2026. If you look at programs like the Manosphere, I don't know if you've ever watched that.
No,
Um,
it's
the
fair.
whole Manosphere is this male way of thinking that is kind of growing on the internet. How women needs to be a certain way. You must bow down to your man, and it's
Hmm.
quite toxic.
Yeah.
So it's still happening, but in a different way. So you get these men writing these manuals. You must cook and clean for me and have no life of your own. So of course a man is going to write that. So I wanted to again show what it was like to be a woman, more
Yeah.
than a wife, but be a woman, and what it's like to be a woman now and how they compare. So that's really what that was about. Because obviously the title is a play on words. It's tongue
Yeah.
in cheek.
Yeah, because okay, so let me see. So chapter one is when a lady is ready to be introduced when a lady is ready to be introduced to polite society, her sole purpose is to find a husband. Then chapter
Absolutely.
two, it is unthinkable to marry outside the class you have been born
Yes.
into. To aspire higher is to be considered an upstart. To marry beneath you could be your ruin.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you have to marry of your own class. I mean,
Mhm.
I've only watched one episode of Bridgerton, but if you think about Bridgerton in a way, this is real, in that sense. And so, yes, you have to marry. Just make sure you marry unless, as I said, you can be a governess or you have a rich family, but it's important. And remember, it's only 50, 60 years ago in this country that a
Yeah.
woman could actually open a bank account without a husband's signature.
Yeah.
Okay, that not that long ago, so it's important to look at how far we've come and maybe how far we haven't come.
I don't know if it has changed now, but there was a time in Nigeria I was told that if you open a joint account, I don't know, there's a man here, maybe he'll know better. But I was told at one time that if you open a joint account with your husband, the man can withdraw from that account without your signature. But if you
Wouldn't
are to
surprise
withdraw, you
me.
need his signature. Yeah.
That wouldn't
All the
surprise
time.
me in one iota. Yeah, that
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. When you're
Um,
talking, I just remembered Bridgerton. Yeah, because if I'm a big fan of Bridgerton. I just like the
okay.
fairy tale. Yes, just get lost in it for a few hours and come back to reality. But the question I kept asking in Bridgerton is, I looked at the male-female dynamics because even though they would say, "Oh, we are not the same," all the men in Bridgerton, as far as I'm concerned, if there's a word like that, were he-hoes. If there's a word like that. Yes, because
Yeah.
the men patronized brutels. They all had mistresses. Then, in fact, the last one, Benedict, was sleeping with both men and women. And then in the end, they all married virgins, which for me
Yes, yes,
was,
yes, yes,
I'm like,
yes.
yeah, because the other brother had a mistress, and I thought, okay, why not defy all odds and marry your mistress? No, 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 no. In the end, they get to marry the pure one, and I'm like, hmm.
Sure. If it's a man's world now, it was
Mhm.
definitely a man's world then. They could do exactly what they want. And that's the thing. If you look at the headings,
Yeah.
there's no way that the woman would have had a life before him. He'd be the first one. So absolutely. So you can imagine that men writing the advice is in
Mhm.
their best interests.
Yeah.
It's another way of controlling women.
Okay. I'm opening the floor now for questions, please. Modupe, I see you guys. Who wants to ask questions? If not, I'll just go on asking questions.
So for me, yeah, thank you. Like, it was a very good book. I enjoyed the read.
Thank you.
The only I was gonna say is I like to when I think of like my mother, my grandmother, I enjoy knowing that there's a bit of them in me, and I think that's what I like
Yeah.
about Landry. It was almost like she experienced some sort of self-discovery and drawing on the
Yeah.
strength from her great grandmother, her grandmother, all of that somehow influenced her in her self-discovery and being, coming out of her relationship, wanting to do her own thing. Now, for me, I'm always skeptical because sometimes our mothers and our maternal, moms do have issues that sometimes we can start to project on ourselves. So, for
Hmm.
instance, if we had a promiscuous great grandmother, where, the stories of her having multiple spouses, so how do we balance it where it's almost like you put your mind towards picking the good and basically staying away because I feel like you can have it one way. If you're saying that there's a bit of that generation in me, then you get both the good and the bad. I don't know if you see where I'm coming from. So if the story is we draw strengths from the stories of our grandmothers and great grandmothers, then what about the negatives? Because they also had issues, Did they struggle
Okay.
with,
Yeah.
promiscuity,
Whose grandmother was promiscuous?
No, no, no. So I'm just saying personally. So for
Oh,
me,
okay.
I
Oh,
feel
okay.
Landry's, in the end, I feel she discovered who she was through the stories of her great grandmother, her grandma. So I feel like every woman somehow contributed to her being who she is today. So
Definitely.
she drew on the strengths of these women. But my thing is, it's that we take as much as we take the positives, we also tend to want to take the negatives as well. So if we had great
Okay.
grand, I'm saying a what if,
Ah,
so how do we balance it in today's world where it's nice to think, okay, yes, had a strong great grandmother. I had a great grandmother who was wealthy and independent and, left this, asset for generations to come and wants the
mm,
girl child to be independent. But then there's also the other side where maybe we had a great grandmother who was into fetish things and maybe was promiscuous or maybe was a
yeah. Okay.
murderer.
Okay. I think she does. I think the negative is displayed because think about it. If you look at the generations, her own mother took her own life. She walked into the sea, so there was issues there. There was issues that started probably long before Temmie, because Temmie's mother was kind of silent, and Temmie's mother had lost a child, so there was grief there. Sorry, there was another child that was lost. There was grief there. Temmie went through all her stuff. Then there was another person. So I think the trauma was definitely displayed there and it was passed down. And I think they could see how much it was passed down. Even the way, Landry had attracted this man and stayed with him. She was reacting to her trauma. So definitely the negative stuff was there. So I think for me, it was more like the negative stuff's there. And when we look about trauma, and I'm a psychotherapist, I know you said philanthropist. I wish I had enough money to be a philanthropist, but I'm a psychotherapist. Um, and we always work with generational trauma. And I wanted to make sure that was in the book, but also I wanted us to also look at the positive because I think especially as black people, if we look at black history, anytime anyone talks about black history, slavery, that's the first thing that comes to mind. No, black history, slavery is an interruption of black history. It is not black history. There is so much positive. So I think we do need to focus more on the positive because the negative has been rammed down our throats for centuries. You're descendants of slaves. You were colonized. This is all very true. But apart from that, there are kings and queens. Africa has a rich lineage. We've invented things. There is so much good. So I think we do need to focus more on the positive, and we don't do that enough, unfortunately. I
Mm.
hope
Thank
that
you.
answers your
Yeah,
question.
it did. Thanks.
I think Modupe was something you said that with the women in our lives, how you take one person passes something on to the other, and then the next passes on to the other. I think there's some truth in that. But also, There are also things you see from your mother and grandmother, and you tell yourself, no, I don't want this happening to me. I don't want this to be my story. Because if I look at the characters in the book, the characters seem to live between duty and desire. Look at Temi, married to a chief, but her desire was for Olu. You understand? And then that inspired her to take off. But I wanted to ask Lola, I said, why was the tension so important for you to explore? Because if you look at duty and desire throughout the book, that's why I said at a point I found Temi a bit selfish when she married Edward. Yeah, I mean, Nigerians say you scratch my back, I scratch your back. So you can't just come there and just be a beautiful wife and you don't want to. And even when he said to her, I would like a child, I felt if he was her husband, was it something he needed to ask her? Was it a request? So why was it important, that tension of duty and desire important for you? Because it seemed to drive the story at different points.
Yeah, I mean, so with Edward, I mean, that wasn't a love relationship as such. That was necessity, right? That was necessity. So I don't know if I don't know if I understand the question, to be fair. I don't understand. What do you mean?
So it's like saying, so okay, let me put it this way. Will you say that as human beings, at different points in our lives, there is that opportunistic tendency to do certain things to achieve what we want? Yeah, because look at everybody, different times, all of them, okay, this will get me here. Okay, let me put it this way. Duty, Temi's parents married her off. Desire, she ran away with Olu.
Yes.
Desire, she lived with Olu, loved him and everything. But again, duty, she wanted to keep that what's the name of that property? Is it Tumbleberry, the property?
Yeah.
Married Edward. Yeah. So I'm looking at it at different points in time because I don't know, I'm fascinated by Temi's story because of her bravery and her boldness to run away.
Yeah.
Get on the ship. Because what were the odds? The odds were that, okay, 50-50. The marriage and the life could have been good. The marriage and the life could have been bad. But she was just lucky. I just feel that Temi was just one of the lucky few. Because some people run away like that and they say, he who ignores signs will see wonders. That's what it's a sarcastic statement. Yeah. And she could have seen wonders too, but I mean, she went on and it was good. So, as a therapist, do you feel that at different points in our lives as humans, there is that tendency to be an opportunist?
Yeah, I can't speak for all humans, but for Temi, definitely, she was a survivor. She was a survivor. She knew she had to survive. And the thing is, this is another thing that I wanted to kind of show with the character. She's a Black woman, right?
Yes.
Let's forget about what era she's in. She's a Black woman. So if we look at the era we're in now, the word strong Black woman is always thrown about. Always, because we're so resilient. We go through so much. There's racism. There's also sexism. We're strong. So with her, there were times where she had to be strong, but I also wanted to show times where she's soft. So Olu brings out her softness, but Edward brings out her strength because I need to survive in this land that doesn't want me here. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So she was able to adapt to her situations and not let it break her. She had to do what she had to do to keep her home, to keep her daughter fed. And that was it. So I think as humans, it depends on your experiences, it depends on your psychological and physical makeup, how you respond. So I can't speak for everybody, but for Temi, she was determined and she was strong in that sense. With Olu, she didn't need to be. He took care of everything. He still respected her as a woman. He wasn't, you must submit to me and do whatever I say. But she was able to submit in a way because she felt safe with him. But with Edward, he was not safe. She had to do whatever she had to do. She had her heckles up. With Edward, she's like this. With Olu, she can breathe.
Yeah.
And that's how she adapted herself accordingly.
I think when as a woman you are able to be like a child with a man, that is being vulnerable, you have met a man. But if a man brings out the masculine side of you, then it is, it's rubbish. It's rubbish. It's rubbish.
Perfect. Yeah,
because I saw her, because with Olu, I mean, Olu didn't have everything, but the love. When we talk of submission, I personally feel that you can't enforce submission. You love someone into submission. Yeah. And when that woman sees that this man knows what he's doing and I'm safe, it just
Hmm.
comes naturally. Yeah, you don't keep forcing it. If as a man you feel the need to always remind a woman that you are a man, then there's something wrong. I feel that,
Exactly, and
yeah,
that's what Ross was doing to
that's what
Landry.
Ross
Even
was
when
doing to Landry.
he
Hmm.
proposed to her. Don't embarrass me, he kept saying. Like he just thrust this on her. You know, modern day couples, they usually discuss if
Yeah.
they're going to get married. They will
Hmm.
discuss it. That wasn't with him. He was like, just here's the ring. He tried to control her. So that shows you they're both inverted commas wives,
Hmm.
but they're both sent, hundreds of years apart, but still suffering in a different way or the same way.
Yeah, and when I found out that, first of all, initially I was like, Ross is not such a bad guy. But when I found out he had a tracker on her phone, I was just pissed. I was just wondering, what kind
Mhm.
of man is this one? What's the problem? You don't,
Mm.
yeah. But Auntie Kike,
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, talk to me about Auntie Kike. Because with her, I wasn't
Mm.
too, I went, okay, this lady is solid, this lady is good.
Hmm.
When Iyabo started saying that, oh, Auntie Kike maltreated me, this, I was wondering, I
Yeah.
said, how? And only for her later to say she lied. So
Oh,
talk
did
to me
she
about,
lie?
yeah, that was what I mean, and that was what Iyabo said. Iyabo said, I lied,
Yeah.
because I wanted you to feel bad for what you did for
Hmm.
leaving me behind. But she left her behind with somebody who cared and also loved her. But
Yeah.
I think what broke me there was the fact that Temi was never able to go back home to even to thank
Yeah.
Auntie Kike. Auntie Kike was never able to come over to England, at least to
No.
enjoy a bit. Yeah. So talk to us about Auntie Kike because she was very solid, very, very solid.
Yes, she was. She was the only confidant that she had, and they were
Yeah.
very close. And we know that in our culture, when a woman maybe doesn't is unable to conceive, they
Hmm.
can kind of give you a child from a part of the family. So, but the irony was that she did have a baby afterwards, in the end. But Auntie Kiki, I just wanted Temi to have someone, an ally, because she's this princess. She's kind of like been given to this older man, almost like she's been bred for this role, and
Hmm.
all this trouble that's happening in the villages. She's also, it's almost put upon her to save everyone. So I needs to have an ally, because without an ally, she wouldn't be able to meet Olu and run away.
Hmm.
And if you look at life in general, you always need an ally. Even if you look at anti-racism, there has to be a white ally somewhere because it's not going to work otherwise. So Auntie Kike had this responsibility to kind of be her ally and help her to find happiness. So that was really what she was about. I didn't really explore the character that much because obviously it was only fleeting, but
Yeah.
her role was important, very important.
Mm. So yeah, so when you are talking about having allies, like even in anti-racism, Modupe, I will get to you, and even in anti-racism, how sometimes, it's almost like I look at it in through the lens of because I do DEI work, so I look at it through the
Okay.
lens of
Okay.
identity, reinvention, and survival, where I feel that sometimes you have to be someone else in order to survive, starting from even our names.
Mhm.
When I was job hunting and I would write Olunosende there, I wouldn't get called for interviews.
Of
Or
course,
else I
of
put
course.
Louisa. Someone said one time, oh, when I saw your name, I thought you were Italian. I'm like,
Mm,
okay,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
do you think that, because when I found out she was the one writing this manual and she had to do it as someone else, my mind just went to Shakespeare. I had read somewhere where people said Shakespeare was a black woman.
I've heard
People,
that as well.
yeah, I've heard that gist.
I've heard
Yeah.
that, yeah.
People just say, yeah, people say because people said there was a time when women, just to get published, had to write under male pseudonyms.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, that's all true. So
Mm.
let alone a black woman trying it, so her boss, that I really enjoyed the scenes of her boss, Mr. Crabtree, because
Crabtree.
like, yeah, he actually had a soft, he fancied her obviously, but she
Mhm,
wasn't going there. But yeah, I quite like that because she kind of cornered him.
mhm.
She would embarrass him if everyone found out this is a black woman. It's bad enough a woman, but a black one on top. So I like the way she kind of handled him. I like their relationship.
I think in the beginning, where what I liked was when the first interview when she went to see him, and it's so interesting how as black people we can be very direct, and then non-black white people, they have a way of buttering, trying to butter the insult. just say to her, I can't give you this job because you are black.
Mr. Crabtree is not like that.
I try to picture him. I just try to picture him because even to me, I try to picture, oh, I can imagine what she looks like when he was saying, oh, he doesn't think anybody will be interested in reading about her experiences. And I love where she said to him, I come from where I've been waited on since I was a baby, and I hire help. Yeah, I've never served anyone. I hire help. So I'm sure he was
Yep.
taken aback and wondering, so who is this woman?
Yeah.
And even when he fancied her, I just felt it was just a fetish. Nah, I don't think, it's a fetish. Nah, I think it was just a fetish. It would have been his dirty little secret. That kind
Poor
of thing
Mr. Crabtree.
yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I'm like, nah. At this stage in our lives, nah. We know what it is. We know what it is. And I think he just saw her as something exotic. Because
Definitely.
and I liked when he addressed her so Miss Masters and she said Mrs. Masters because
Yeah. Yeah.
she wanted to keep it, that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I see your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree with you about the allies. I just wanted to, clarify. But now that we've brought up Mr. Captree, does our ally have to be another Black woman that can relate with our issues and the trials and challenges we face? But then when you brought up Mr. Captree, he was an ally as well that stood up for her
You're
even in
right.
the court,
You're right.
court case, and then there was also that help she had that her daughter
Yeah.
also came. So I feel like, especially as a Black woman with all the challenges we face, like you said initially, sexism, all of that, we all need allies to be able to, I guess, overcome some of those things and basically stand strong. But does it necessarily have to be another Black woman that can identify with, our struggles?
Well, no, because I feel that if we're looking at allies in regards to anti-racism work, the other Black woman hasn't got the power because we need people in power to have allies.
Mhm.
The Black woman is in the same boat as you, so she doesn't need to be the ally. She's still in the same boat. So the ally, it has to be the person who is in a position of power. And that is, I mean, the most powerful person, I would say, or not powerful, the most privileged will be the white male, right,
Yeah.
of a certain age.
Mhm.
So that allyship will be very powerful. I mean, if you look at Dr. Martin Luther King, when he's marching, there are white people on there with him. And this is not to say white saviors. That's different. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about acknowledging in someone's journey, especially someone in the Victorian era, that she was able to do certain things. So with Auntie Kike, that was her ally within the family. But if we're talking about race and surviving in England, then you're right. I'm so glad you brought up about Mr. Crabtree. Even though he had a fetish, as you said, he had the power to give her the job that allowed her to write and earn a decent income for her family. Without that, what would she have done? Because there was not enough Black people in power during that time to help her along. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Your ally can't look like you. Yeah.
No,
Because if both of
not
you are
at
in the
all.
same boat, that boat will sink. Yeah.
That's
The
it.
ally
Yeah.
has sometimes to look like the enemy. Because the ally sometimes has to
That's
look
it.
like the enemy. Because when that person is speaking, it's like when, women, like in the government, if you look at the way the government was structured, it's structured for the straight white male. So even in
Absolutely.
anti-racism work, you need those allies. They are
For
the
sure.
ones who go there and say, oh, I don't think this is right. I think this should be this should be that. And then those ones will be like, okay, let's hear what you, because there's a difference between, it's like saying, one thing DEI work has taught me is, what am I saying and what are you hearing? Yes, they are two very different things. Yeah,
Yes.
I might be talking about rights, access. The other person might just be hearing take over, take over, take over, take over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your
Absolutely.
ally sometimes has to look like your enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's a good point.
yeah, and sometimes I see that a lot of many of the characters in this book seem to carry secrets.
I like a good
So
secret. Yeah.
so what interests you most, like, about the emotional burden of silence in families and relationships? Because I think it's just life. There's always one family secret somewhere. And at least yours, I like the fact that your grandmother's love story inspired this book. Like, if I was going to write a story now, let me see, what from my grandparents' story would inspire me to write? I remember I told my dad that I think my grandfather had a thing for tall, light-skinned women. My dad went,
Okay.
nah, because my grandfather was very serious. But I said to my dad, I said, look at your mom. She was tall and light-skinned. Look at your auntie, your half-sister, the daughter of your grandfather, of your father's side chick. I mean, that woman is almost what, 80, but she is so beautiful. She's
Right.
light-skinned, she's tall, she's more beautiful than all my dad's sisters. I said, so if she's this beautiful, imagine what her mom must have looked like. So that was your dad's thing. It's just that it wasn't said. So yeah. So what interests you most about will I call it the burden, the emotional burden of silence in families and relationships?
Yeah, like I've been a psychotherapist for a long time now. One thing I would say is families, whew, what you see on the outside is not what is going on behind closed doors. And I yet to meet a family that doesn't have secrets, whether it's family, friends, whatever. And I think that makes a good book because a good book is about conflict. And I personally do not think there is a family out there without secrets. There just this isn't. It doesn't have to be a massive secret, it doesn't have to be murder and pillage or something like that. But there are secrets because we are all human and we're all multifaceted and we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And we've all got failings. So I think it's quite nice for them to develop over time in a book. And it also, reading it makes us feel okay about our own lives because everyone else is messed up.
Yeah, but if I look at Temi's journey and I look at Landry, I think, like I said, because you notice most of the questions I'm asking is more about Temi. Landry for me is just like a regular babe, like all of us. Yeah, she's just a woman who is caught between, not too sure. This guy is he ticks all the right boxes, but there's something missing. But the thing is, it's almost as if the novel is asking, who gets to define a woman's worth? Yes, who gets to define? Because what has been going on, I was discussing with a friend of mine yesterday night. We're talking about so a video surfaced online where a woman was lying down, she was in pain. And the doctors had asked that she have a cesarean section because she couldn't push. And the husband was refusing to sign the papers, insisting that she must have the baby, she must push. And I'm
Oh
wondering, my
God.
body, my choice. Yeah. So that has been the argument. People have been arguing. Some men came online to say no, for them, cesarean births are deal breakers. Yeah. My friend was saying yesterday night, for health reasons, if for health reasons you need that, then that's fine. But if it's something you can do naturally, then do the natural thing. But again,
What
so my
happened to
question
the
is,
lady? What
huh?
happened to this lady? What happened to the
I
lady in
don't
the end?
know. So they've been going back and forth because the man refused. He said she must give birth like Hebrew women.
Yeah,
So
but what
yeah,
country is this though?
it's Nigeria now.
Nigeria.
Oh, I was gonna
Nigeria. I
say.
read that.
Oh,
Yeah, it's Nigeria.
Yeah, I
oh
saw the
God.
So
story
yeah,
as well.
so they've been going back and forth with it, and we've seen videos. I saw another video where a woman went to confront her husband's side chick, and I think that in Nigeria, one thing we do without even knowing is we romanticize trauma. Oh, do you know how I've suffered in my husband's house? For me, it's not. I don't know. It's not an award. Who cares? You suffered. It's your business. It's your headache. She was saying to the side chick, "Do you know how I've suffered in my husband's house?" And a man commented on that underneath that if his wife disrespects him by going to confront his side chick, he will upgrade the side chick to the role of his second wife. And I'm wondering, I
Okay.
don't know, I feel that when you love somebody, we are both accountable to each other. There's nonsense you shouldn't be comfortable saying in public. It's like a married woman coming out to say, "Oh, I'm going to sleep with all these." No, there are things you shouldn't. Because if you don't, what you don't want anyone to do to your daughter, I don't think you should be comfortable enough to do it to someone else. So, who really gets to define a woman's worth? Because they'll tell you as a woman, if you are too confident, you know your worth, you will end up single. Yeah, I've seen that before. It was even discussed on one TV program that when you
But
know your
even
worth,
you
yeah.
saying that though, sorry
Hmm?
to interrupt, but even you
Yeah.
saying that if you're too confident you'll end up single, there is a growing amount of women now, and maybe I only know this because I'm online quite a lot, but there's a growing number of women that are rejecting coupledom and they're quite happy in their singledom. And all these arguments about, oh, you have to get married, you have to have children, unless you're going to be, they're rejecting that. So I think even the word, if you're too confident, you'll remain single. It's problematic in itself because it means that you cannot be single. You must have a man by your side. So I'm quite encouraged by seeing young women saying that no, we're doing what we want to do. If you
Yeah.
want to be married, you want to have children, that is wonderful. If you want to be single and never have children, that is wonderful too. So,
Mhm.
in answer to your question, who has ownership over the body? It should be the woman. It's her body.
Nobody.
She should decide. And I'm appalled when I heard what you just said about the man saying she's going to have to give birth. And I just, but even though, and if someone just said that it's always Nigerian, I did laugh inwardly. But if
Mhm.
you think about it, it's not always just Nigeria. In America as well, they have, they don't want women to have autonomy over their own bodies. So
Mhm.
it's everywhere. And it's just, sometimes it stays in the mind, but sometimes they're given a platform to actually say it. That's the only difference. So I
Mhm.
feel that it can happen. If you check out the manosphere and what's going on online with men and how they see women and how they want women to be, it's frightening.
Mm.
You could be working with someone who has these really outdated views.
Okay.
Nothing you can do about that. Just don't marry him. Just stay
Mm.
away from that type of guy. But they're there.
Yeah,
So,
but
and that goes back to the book.
mhm. So
It's too, too
who
funny.
gets to define a woman's worth? That's it. Because in this book, in this book, Temi, in the beginning, her family got to define her worth by marrying her off to
True.
that man. And then I felt that her running away with Olu was her taking back her power to say, you know
Yes, for
what, this
sure.
is who I want to be with. I love this man. And then Olu turned out to be amazing. But again, as she went on, I kept seeing that power dynamic with Edward. Edward, at a point, wanted. I think Edward was just an unhappy man who had issues. But I felt that because I felt if she showed Edward, if she had showed Edward just a little love, a little softness, maybe she would have brought out the human in him. I don't know.
Mm,
And not
I
the
don't know.
beast.
Edward's
Mhm.
Edward's dad was with the nanny, the black nanny, who was probably an enslaved person. Look
Mhm.
at the dates. So his nanny was an enslaved person, and
Okay.
he loved his nanny, and then he wanted a black woman. So if anyone had a fetish, in all fairness, he was much worse than Mr. Crabtree.
Crabtree.
So as we were saying before, if you're with a man who you can be a child with, you can bring out your softness. He's gold. With Edward, she
Mhm.
knew this man was a horrible predatory guy. So
Yeah.
there's no way she's going to be nice to him. I mean, look what he did with the daughter. He had no scruples, and she knew that. So I think I'm going to have to disagree with you there, respectfully. Edward, Edward was a lost cause. He was a powerful white man in a society where he just bought what he wanted, and it was quite dubious. His lust for
Mm,
her was a bit dubious, but she had no choice. She needed the money, and I'm
mm.
not going to judge her for that. Yeah. I love how we
Maybe,
talk about this. We're like they're real.
yeah, no, I mean, but sometimes but that is the beauty of books. That's the beauty.
Yeah, it is.
That's the beauty. Then there was this part I found that was a bit vague. I think maybe I needed to read it again. After Olu, the first person she got with, who was that person? The first man
Mm,
she got with, she was intimate with after Olu.
it was Edward. Simon Weatherall wanted her.
Mhm.
It was Edward.
Was it him?
Yeah, I think it was Edward.
It was
Yeah.
Edward.
There was the other guy on the
Because
ship
the,
that
because
was
the, because the
hampering her.
first the first intimate
Simon.
encounter was quite passionate. And then after that, everything just went downhill from there. That's why I was wondering. I was asking at a point because I listened to the audiobook.
It
Could
was
it still be
Edward.
the same man? So what
Yeah.
happened? If the
Yeah, it was
first
Edward.
Yeah,
intimate,
Yeah.
it
if the
changed.
first intimate encounter was good, could it be because she too was craving that physical, she had that physical desire?
Oh, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yes,
Yeah.
she had desire. She wanted to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing. Women are portrayed as, especially in those days, they
Yeah.
must be virginal and they must not want sex. And if you
Mm-hmm.
look at the heading titles, I think I alluded to that, where sex is only for procreation, and
Yeah.
that is it. It is
Yeah.
not for pleasure. It'll be pleasure for the man, but not for the woman. And she must give it up whether she wants it or not. So, but I wanted to show Temi as sensual and sexual.
Mm-hmm.
She did want that. She wanted to feel nice because that was not the done thing for a Victorian woman to feel and think. No way.
Yeah, because when I listened to that, I went, oh, wow, Temi, okay. And then I started
Yeah.
wondering, okay, how did things go downhill from there? Because I just felt, okay, even if there's no love here, it's just going to be a purely physical thing. But She just couldn't stand the man. After that, it's like saying, I just used him to scratch an itch, and after that, he can go to hell.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
like,
was
yeah.
very nice. Undercurrents were there, and he had the power, and he used that power. It's not a
Okay.
nice feeling, especially when she's been with someone like Olu. To go from Olu to that is a big difference. He's not fit to lick Olu's shoes, you know?
Yeah, true. Dupe, I see your hand up. Miss H, are you
Yeah,
there?
so I was gonna, yeah, for me, I was just gonna say that it feels like
Sorry,
in
I
all
am
of it,
Lisa.
Okay.
Thanks.
yeah, a price had to be paid to be who you want to be and pursue what you want to pursue. Because even with Landry, you know, the breakup in her engagement, she had her career was almost threatened. I feel like everybody, even Tammy, leaving her first husband and going all the way to, you know, England and getting on the ship. I feel like even till today, if we're comparing back then and now, if you still want to be yourself and pursue your dreams and be who you are, there's always a price to pay. I think for me that's how I
Yeah.
see it. Like, and I don't know
Yes.
if it's the same thing with guys. Like, and because it's almost like, why do we have to pay a price? Why do we have to give up something? Why does there have to be a negative thing to be able to be who you want to be? Why do you have to give up something? You know, but I feel like that's the all the characters, all the from Tammy to Landry, her mom, they all gave up something that cost them something to pursue what they really wanted to pursue in life.
You're
You know.
absolutely right, and I think that is the woman, and that is what women have to do, unfortunately. Because even if you look at, in some marriages, for example, when you look at if you're doing like marriage counselling or whatever, and sometimes, well, a lot of the times, the emotional load, everything else is on the wife. The husband still has the same life that he had before they got married. But the mothers, no, she's not going to be seeing her friends the same way. She's looking after those children. She's working a full-time job because this is not Victorian times when the men just go out to work and the women stay at home and he gives her money. No, these days women are working just as hard, and so she has to do all of that. So she is giving up something. I'm not saying she doesn't want to give up something. She wants to have these children. She wants to have this family. But I find that the men not that much. They give up a bit of their income, but that's about it. Who they are is the same, but the woman's identity shifts. And I heard someone say the other day, if a woman wants to have it all, it's not possible. It's a controversial statement. I don't know where I stand with that, but she said that something has to give. And I also saw something the other day that really stayed with me. There was a a palliative care nurse. So I don't know if you call that the same way where you are, but it's someone who is, a nurse who looks after the dying. And she said that what she noted with the Black women that she spoke to was that they're dying and they will keep saying to her, if I had my time over again, I wouldn't give so much. I just gave everything to children, to husband, to friends, to family, to everything, to my job. I wish I didn't give too much of myself. And that really has stayed with me as it's trying to kind of percolate in my mind. And it's not to say that you have to be selfish in life, but there has to be a balance somewhere. There has to be an off switch where you're not just giving everything to the point of where you're depleted. And on your deathbed, you're saying that is your biggest regret.
I think as women sometimes because we keep giving because our identity
Mm.
keeps changing at different points.
Mm.
You start out as a young girl, and then when you get to the time for marriage, it's almost, as far as I'm concerned, it's almost as if you are auditioning for that.
Mm.
Just a minute, please. It's almost as if you are auditioning for the role. And why I say auditioning for the role,
Mm.
when you meet a guy and he takes you to go see his family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the one I still don't get, because I've asked my friends who have sons. So if your son brings home a girl he wants to marry, do you expect her to go into the kitchen with you? Now, this is a house I don't know. One of my sisters said before she got married, when she went to see her mother-in-law, the woman asked her to join her in the kitchen, but she just asked her to join so that they could just have privacy to talk.
Okay.
So she would ask her questions and all of that. But I've seen situations where a man takes his girlfriend home, and then the mother is washing clothes, and then you are expected to join the mother in washing clothes, especially if it's something you don't do at home. I believe in respect. I believe in honor, but I
Yeah.
don't. And yes, and when you eat as a well brought up child, you take your dishes to the kitchen and you ask you wash your dishes. But this auditioning, I don't get it. Then again, identity shifts. You get married, you have children, your body changes. But especially with Nigerian women, another thing I notice is I've had, like, as a rule back then, a lot of my friends, as they start getting married, I start cutting them off. Yeah, once they get married, I cut you off.
The friends are doing that.
Huh? I was
Who's
doing
cutting
that.
them off?
I was cutting them off or putting a
Okay.
safe distance. Yes, because they started taking the piss. And by taking the piss, it's like saying, okay, Lola, how are you doing now? What's up? And then you get married tomorrow and you're texting me and you're going, Mrs. blah, 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 ni Jaye. And I'm wondering, okay. And then some women you meet and you go, oh, what's your name? I go, I'm Louisa. And I realize that if they don't want you to call them by their first name, they'll tell you Louisa Johnson. So that means you want me to address you as Mrs. Johnson. But
Okay.
a man remains himself. If a man's name is John from high school,
Yeah.
through the years, my dad is still called by his first name, by friend.
Absolutely.
But even women, you meet women and you address them by their name. Oh, don't you know I'm a married woman? Don't you know I'm someone's wife? And then I'm wondering, what's going on here? What is going on here?
But culturally as well, I mean, not even just culturally, it's a status thing, especially in Nigeria. It is a status thing. You know, that you're respectable if you're married. You know, I've come across women that, you know, the husband is long gone to a woman, but they're still using that name. I know there's the argument that women like to have the same name as their kids, but this was more than that. I want to appear respectable, so I'm gonna be going by Mrs. Yeah, I mean, and that kind of reminds me of the Victorian part of the book, because you know you have to be a Mrs. If you're not, then what are you? Are you a woman of ill repute? Why are you not married? You know, so it's quite backward thinking, but you know, it does happen in Nigeria. I get it.
I think the thing is, I think some of them use it as safety because of the way the society is. Because you find women who have been divorced. I used to have a boss then, and she would always talk about my husband, my husband. And I asked her, I thought maybe they just, because I heard she was separated, and I thought maybe they just separated a couple of months ago. And when I asked her, she said they divorced in 1987.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the man has gone on to marry someone else.
Of
And when they were
course.
together, he was so violent, he almost killed her. But she was still going by Mrs.
Yeah.
But sometimes too, I don't blame them because I feel it is safer because there are always two things. When I worked in Nigeria, we would go on trips, maybe official trips, and you introduce yourself you introduce yourself with your name. The men are a bit wary. But once they find out that you are not married, they start trying to be overly familiar.
Okay.
Yes. So sometimes I don't blame some women for saying Mrs. or some go as far as even wearing rings.
Yeah.
Just for that. And just for that, because it's just like, you know what? I don't want any stress. I don't want any wahala. Even with women. Yeah. Oh, men will have friends. Oh, this my friend is a bachelor. They will invite you. Oh, come over, come for dinner. You know you don't have a wife. But women, it's still that thing. Oh, you know she doesn't have a husband. We can't invite her. You can't have her in our circle. So I don't know what it is, but is this changing identity? But I think it affects women more than it affects men.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to go to Iyabo. So Iyabo's place in the story, you know, it feels emotionally loaded. And I think maybe because she's tied to Temi's pain, Temi's guilt, and motherhood.
For sure.
What were you interested in exploring through that bond? Because in the end, because when Iyabo left, I was just thinking, I said, so that part of the whole lineage is gone. But then in the end, someone called Ronke reaches out to say, oh, she's from that lineage. Yeah. So what were you trying to explore through that relationship?
I think it's clear from when the baby was born that Temi was suffering from postnatal psychosis, not even just postnatal depression, I would say psychosis too in it. And so the bond was very much severed. And obviously in those days, we're not going to explore postnatal depression here. So I think that it was severed by that. Obviously the circumstances with her conception was that she was assaulted, but that there are people that, they can still form a bond with the baby. It doesn't mean that, but there was definitely postnatal psychosis that happened there. So the bond was done at that point. But she still had love for her child and she still wanted the best for her. And you said that earlier about her giving her to Auntie Kike. She knew that she'd be in safe hands. So she loved her child, but she needed to go and she wasn't going to take the baby with her. How would she on a ship? So I know a lot of readers who I've spoken to have kind of, judged Temi in some form of way. But when it comes to mental illness, I don't know if we can judge. And also, she was assaulted as a child. Trigger warning. Sorry if this brings up anything for anybody. Please talk about it after the session. But she was assaulted. That wasn't a consensual relationship. So she had a lot of stuff going on. So I think we should give her a bit of grace
Mm.
um, for what happened there, for sure. But on the Yabos side, she doesn't know all of that. All
Mhm.
she knows is that her mom abandoned her, and that is that. And she has issues to do with that. And I understand that also.
Okay, so in terms of Iyabo now, so would you want readers to see Iyabo mainly through Temi's emotional lens, or would you hope that would you prefer if readers read about Iyabo as someone carrying her own separate wounds and agency?
Yeah, yeah. People ask me which character would you like to give a hug to, and it'll be Yabo actually, because she felt abandoned by her mother. Who
Mm.
knows what the father was like? Because we know what he was like. So, she was trying to find a place, and she came to find her mother, and a predator saw her, which was Edward,
Edward, yeah.
and she went for it. Whether it was revenge for what her mother had done, or someone was paying her attention, a man was paying her attention, who knows? But I think she definitely was a victim in this, even though at the time you're thinking, how could you do that to your mother? We need to think beyond that and see what led her here.
But was there anything between she and Edward? The only thing I remember was the encounter when her mom walked in and found Edward on her. Was there an
Yeah,
established like relationship between she and Edward? Was he taking advantage of her or he
yeah,
tried to?
yeah, probably that. Because even if you can say it was consent, really was it? He was predatory and she had issues. So
Mm,
in these days, we would look at it differently. In these days, we look at the victim more, the survivor more. But in those days, it's more black and white. You
okay.
temptress, you tempted this poor man. But now we would see, hold on, there's more to this. Yeah,
Mm.
it's up to the reader to make up their own mind when it comes to
Yeah,
that. I think.
yeah, because I look at it and I'm wondering, okay. Anyway, let me bring it back to the present. Let's go to Landry because we've been talking about Temi and we've just forgotten Landry. So Landry, because Landry uncovers family history now through that hidden journal, and that journal becomes a bridge between the past and the present.
Mhm.
So what role did you want her to play in helping readers interpret Temi's life? Like, was there any role you wanted Landry, or it was just a comparison, just to show us that through generations,
Mhm.
certain things have always existed and some things haven't
Mhm.
changed, especially when it has to
Well,
do
she
with
was
women.
she was definitely a plot device in the sense that someone had to find out about these letters and to have a link with the past. So there was that plot device there to kind of she was going to draw out these things.
Okay.
Um, really. So yeah, she was useful in that way, as well as the what you just said about showing the comparisons. But I
Mm,
think she wasn't the main character. So Temi's the main character, and that is it. But she
yeah.
is a plot device to draw out and also to show the generations and also get the reader thinking, what about my lineage? How many of us here know the names of our great, great, great grandmother? I don't.
I don't.
Nope, exactly.
No, I
You
don't.
know,
I
and
don't.
family ties and just,
Mm,
what led us to be here right now. So it's quite nice when I hear people saying that they're looking at their family tree, they've decided to start recording things, because we
mm,
all take photos on our phone that stays on our phone, but how many of us write things down and record the histories that the next generation can see? So that was Landry's role there, to
mm,
see that she comes from this rich tapestry of women, these amazing women. And I focused on the women, and the whole will was that only the firstborn woman would inherit the house, because everywhere you look, it's always a firstborn male,
yeah.
especially in African cultures, African and Asian cultures. Male, 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 firstborn. No, it's the
Yeah.
firstborn woman. So that was very deliberate in that sense.
Mm. And this book taught me something. When I listened to the end, I said, there are so many stories like this in families that will never be told.
Yeah.
Yeah, they will never be
Yeah.
told. They will never be known. Yeah, they will never be told. They will never be known. Yeah,
Hmm.
character, it's making me want to ask, what were these people like? Like now I'm thinking, what was my great-great-grandmother like? I don't know. I
Yeah,
just know that
exactly.
I know my grandmother from my mom's side. She passed away when my mom was 3. But one of my aunts has said in passing, from her photo that I saw, she was rich and she was a
Mm,
businesswoman. And she said to me, "You remind me of her sometimes because she was a no-nonsense kind of
mm,
woman." And I went, "Oh,
yeah,
really? I thought I'm just stubborn
nice.
and I'm just a coconut head, like they say." And she said, "Nah." She said, "Your grandma was like that." So if you look at it,
Good.
right, if we look at Landry and Timmy now, I'm just asking, the question in my head is, in what way does Landry mirror Timmy emotionally? And in what way did you want her to break away from that inherited pattern? You know, it's like saying that, oh, sometimes there are patterns in families, there are patterns that
Yeah,
keep repeating themselves. And you get to a point where you go, enough is enough. I want to be the one to end this cycle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
problem.
I'd like to think that she did do that
Mhm.
because, as I said, her own mother took her own life, so she could have gone that way, not taken her own life, but inherited these things that are passed down. And we know that from research, you can actually
Okay.
inherit things, genetically. So we call
Okay.
it epigenetics,
Okay.
and you can carry on these things genetically. It's a controversial subject, but it's worth looking at.
Mhm.
So she did want to end it. And I think her way of ending it was by not being in a toxic relationship.
Mm.
Yeah. Like she
Yeah.
wasn't in a toxic relationship like Temmie. She ended it, even though this guy on paper was perfect, really.
Yeah.
But she ended it. And she ended up doing what she wanted to do. Because remember,
Okay.
it wasn't just about relationships, it was about her work. She was
Yeah.
working 60-hour weeks, being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Um, not climbing the ladder the way that she would want to. So she got rid of that as well. She
Mhm.
literally changed her entire life.
Yeah.
And that's how she breaks the spell. She breaks the spell by putting her needs first and not, going to this man and putting his needs first. So she's broke the spell already by doing that.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I wish we had more time with you, but thank you so much. Please, can we take our photo?
Hmm.
Where's everybody with their books? You know what? Let me just hold this. Does anybody have Miss H? I know you're busy. I know you're at work. I wanted you to give us some wisdom nuggets, but Lola is about to leave.
It's
That's
okay,
our,
it's okay, it's good. Good discussion. This good
Thank
discussion, but
you.
I think it's important that we do feel safe in relationships.
Hmm.
And despite, the trauma or what's passed down, we still have to find ways to survive. We have to find
Yeah,
ways to prepare for the next generation.
for sure.
So, and we do have to take care of ourselves because I think women as a whole, we pride ourselves on completing every task. And as Black folks, we always want to overdo. Like we always trying to measure up because I guess from colonization or something.
Hmm.
But sometimes, we have to stand up and even in relationship, watch the hydro get cut off. Not because we have what it takes or think about the neighbor that I should pay the hydro when my husband is neglecting to pay. No, let it
Yeah.
cut and we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll never have to remind him again. So I think we need to do these things with families, friends, work, everywhere. We have to prioritize ourselves or let people learn by the lessons that we want to teach because too much times we talk a lot. So
Yeah.
that's my piece.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
thank you,
Thank you,
Miss
Thank
Lola.
H.
It's
you.
a good read.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Lola. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to your
Thanks for
next
having
book.
me.
All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Um,